So you're about to do your SAT and you're wondering about the writing section. Well, let's take a look at it. So the way they want you to do this section, and the way I would generally recommend, is to read it. I would also always read the titles because these things kind of set you in the right direction. Here we're going to be reading about crowdfunding. Even if you don't know what that is, it has something to do with the arts, and perhaps it's something we should be rethinking. Most of them, though, are going to be grammar questions. About 75% of the questions here are little things that just test you on, are you paying attention to transitions? This one's just an apostrophe question. At it is best. Oh gosh, no. And then this isn't even a word. You can't do this. It is singular and S apostrophe is plural. So, probably a lot of this stuff is going to be things you remember from basic grammar. They are, however, occasionally going to ask you these ones where there's instructions at the beginning. I call these assignment questions. And for these, you do got to pay a little bit more attention to the content. So when you're looking at these types of questions, remember that there are only 8 things that they test on this. Things like connectors, reviewing and versus but, making sure you're comfortable with how semicolons and colons work. Basically, a semicolon, as I'll say again in a moment, is just a period as far as you're concerned. It separates 2 complete sentences. Colons are calls and then answers, or a setup and a payoff. And yes, you can pay off a list, but there are other ways to do it as well. And then verbs and pronouns, and a lot of stuff comes down to agreement and patterns. The first one is going to be what you'd pick if you think it's fine. You can have a semicolon and then an and, so that's just always going to be incorrect. Similarly, as he incorrectly lists, you don't really want to have a connecting word situation and then paired in conjunction with a comma. So even though we haven't even seen this passage, this one seems like it could be the answer. For these assignment questions, you want to be paying attention to what they're actually asking about. This one asks about, this is obviously an unrelated passage to the other one, but Swede's career. Who is this Swede? He's somebody who worked in the labor movement, so maybe an answer choice that had something to do with like labor activism. These questions can be tricky sometimes, so you have to stop, turn off your grammar brain for a second, and then turn on, am I paying attention to what's going on? Which is why I would, even if you're reading it quickly, still try to read the parts with no underlines. Guessing, a big part of this section, guys, is brevity. There are some exceptions as we'll get to, but if you're ever not sure what to do, always guess the shortest one or the one that seems to flow the best. Shorter is a good way to break a tie on this section. Obviously, it's not always going to be the shortest one. If the shortest one is wrong, it's just grammatically flawed, don't pick it. Or it leaves out really important stuff that would mess the passage up if it wasn't in there. Or, of course, there's an assignment question that says otherwise, but probably more often than not, the shorter one is going to be a better answer. So go with that as your tiebreaker. This section is all about learning the usual suspects. It's the same questions over and over and over again. So anytime you get one wrong, write it down. And that brings us to, of course, our overall tips. You're going to guess on every single question here. As you practice, you can find practice review drills on Khan Academy or on the SAT's website, or there's a million resources out there. Review what you missed, because you're going to see the same batch of questions that you didn't know. If you forgot that a semicolon just means a period, or you're not paying attention to assignment questions, review those, notate them so that you can see them again, and then get back on the horse and ride again. It's like playing the same board of a video game over and over again. The computer doesn't get smarter. The computer doesn't adapt. It just gives you the same bad guys in roughly the same order. Learn how to beat them, and this whole thing becomes easier. And of course, get help. If you have an English teacher, a parent, or a friend who's great at grammar, they can point out what happened on the ones you didn't get. We're certainly happy to help if you need us. We have, of course, SAT, ACT classes, but also free practice tests from time to time. And then we follow that up with a seminar going over results that can kind of point you in the right direction about how to make the whole process a little less intimidating. So let us know if we can help. But remember, these tests are the same every time. That's how they're designed. They can be learned. You will be fine.